Alright, hey everyone. So this isn't something like I really talk about, I generally just report the news, but I don't really make a video surrounding the news and such. So what I wanted to discuss was this whole controversy surrounding Watch Dogs, the graphics for the game. There was brand new gameplay that emerged from the PlayStation 4 version of the game, and it's actually what you're seeing right now. This is the gameplay that emerged. Most of you probably haven't seen this. Is the director's cut footage, so it's a little bit longer than what GameSpot was showing. But it's going to be immediately apparent to someone else that, hey, this doesn't look like the game that I saw back in E3 2012 or even E3 2013. And there is some parts in the game that you look at and you're like, especially in this video, you're like, did they change his character? Something looks different. It's like something doesn't sit right. But I did a little bit more research into this, and there was an interesting article about the history of Ubisoft games and how much they've been downgraded graphically because of I don't know, hardware, stuff like that. So I mean, when you're looking at this footage, the game does look good. It's just that it doesn't have that wow factor that you know that it had when it debuted in E3 2012. And I wanted to sort of remind everyone of really what we saw at E3 2012. All right, what we saw at E3 2012, and I'm gonna have this footage switching back and forth here. All right, but what we saw at E3 2012, guys, it was not that the game was never gonna look that good. All right. Watch Dogs Run, I'll have some gameplay of E3 2012 showing up probably right now, but what you guys saw of E3 2012, alright, that was Watch Dogs running on an SLI GTX 680 setup on a PC. Alright, now your PlayStation 4 and or Xbox One is not in any way, shape, or form a force to be reckoned with like an SLI setup GeForce GTX 680 setup is. Alright, to put in perspective, those of you guys who aren't familiar with the whole PC terms, SLI means that you have two graphics cards set up basically performing one single game. It's very, very expensive, especially with GTX 680s. Those are like $500 graphics cards. So those are high-end $500 graphics cards, and there's two of them powering this game to give you the visual flair that you're actually seeing right now. So just think about all the stuff that's going on that you're seeing, how good it looks and everything like that. And imagine $1,000 just in graphics cards to basically get this thing to run at a resolution of, let's say, 1080p at 30 frames per second. That's a lot. All right, but what we saw at E3 2012, the game was never going to look that good. There's no way that they can get the game to look this good on the PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, because the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I think, have AMD, the equivalent to the AMD 7700 chips or something like that. It's some graphics card in the 7000 series of AMD, and those are not compatible with an SLI GTX 680 setup. The game's not going to look this good, guys. It's nice that we got to see this game looks gorgeous. And I remember when I sat down on my couch and I was watching the Ubisoft press conference and they played that trailer and all of a sudden it transitioned into gameplay, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, this is actual gameplay. I couldn't, just like you guys, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And it was understandable back then that the game ran with dual SLI GTX 680 setups. The problem is that the general person, even the hardcore PC gamer, doesn't have two GTX 680s in their system. They have one graphics card. These days, I would say the general hardcore gamer probably has a 770. Some lucky people have the Titan. You know, some people have this. I know a guy who has a 690 in his rig. You know, I mean, I have a 560 Ti. That's not gonna output, you know, games like Watch Dogs max settings and get this type of performance. It's not gonna do it. It runs pretty well for the graphics card and how old it is. You know, I'm sitting here. I'm running Far Cry 3 on max settings at 1080p, and Crysis 3 1080p at high settings with some ultra, very high settings, whatever you want to call it, enabled. You know, but my graphics card, it's great for the price that I bought it. But what you guys are seeing right now and everything that you guys have seen of the game, it's all subject to change. And everyone knows this, that, you know, the game is in development. It is still in development at this point in time. So even what you're seeing right now from Watch Dogs is you're looking at it, you're like, but it doesn't look as good as E3 2012. It's all subject to change. You know, that just because you're seeing the game now doesn't mean that that's the current state in which the game is. They only show us Ubisoft, Montreal, who's working on the freaking game. I think it is Ubisoft Montreal, but I may be mistaking. It's I don't know. It's some Ubisoft studio, whatever. They only show us as much as they want to show us. We're not sitting there in the development process seeing this thing from start to finish in development. All right, and you guys, you and me have no idea of the power and how to utilize the power within both of these next-gen consoles. You know, it's like if you sat down, you're like, oh yeah, I want to create a game. It's gonna be the most beautiful game ever, and it's just, you know, it's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be the most beautiful game ever conceived. It's gonna be on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. No, you have to cut corners. You're gonna have to reprogram your game engine. Game engines vary from, you know, from platform to platform. Certain game engines, like the CryEngine, does everything in real time and takes up a lot more resources than something like what's a good example? What did Far Cry 3 run on? It was a modified. It was the same engine as Far Cry 2, but it was modified in Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 had a very different engine than Crysis 3 did. Very different. That's why Far Cry 3 I could run almost max, because it was, you know, different resources were handling different things, and it wasn't taking the amount of memory and stuff as a game like Crysis 3 would, you know, and the game looked gorgeous. The game really looked gorgeous. But just because a game, let's say, what's a good example here? Let's say, I don't know, let's say like a game looks better on my PC, and it's newer, but a game that's older, I'm not able to run at max settings. You know, it's kind of like a bad analogy, all right? But imagine Crysis 3. Imagine Crysis 3. Imagine me not being able to run that high settings, but I can run something like, what came out later last year? I can run something like, I don't know, Battlefield 4 on high settings. I'm not saying that's true because I don't know the ins and out of the Frostbite engine. Alright, but the reason I can run Battlefield 4 max settings and Crysis 3 not on max settings is because these are two different engines that are handling different tasks, that are taking up different resources and different amounts of power. Battlefield 4 may look better, but may not be as demanding as something like Crysis 3. If that makes sense. These game engines are built and utilize different resources, even though that one game may look particularly better than the other. You know, it's not like, oh, in the future, 10 years from now, we're gonna have these beautiful looking games, and just because the game's newer, it has to look better than the games prior to it. It's not always the case. These engines are crafted differently. They are programmed and to you know, gather resources and use resources very differently. I mean, the whole thing is just polish and efficiency. You got to program your engine to the point where it's going to run well and it's going to look well, look good. Now, we're going to transition into gameplay over here from their last video, right? This is the last, the one before this new Watch Dogs trailer that they released. This is the 14-minute developer walkthrough, and this is taken from a PlayStation 4 as well. Now, you're probably saying, yeah, see, this looks fine to me. But I want you to notice the insane amount of pop-in from this demo. You guys, there's a building that there's. I'm not actually seeing the video right now, but when he was walking to this pawn shop, if you noticed on the walls, there were shadows popping in, and when he's driving along the bridge to get to the other half of the city, look off into the distance. You're going to see this huge skyscraper pop in. As he's getting off the bridge, you're going to see a bunch of civilians and cars just pop in. The whole game, that whole demo featured massive pop-in, and that demo, that video was released a month before the game was released, and I got worried. I was like, "There's so much pop-in in this game." No, and thank God it got delayed, because I would rather take the game that I'm seeing right now, that the new gameplay that everyone claims looks horrible. I would rather see that and play that version that has no to little pop-in, rather than the version that you guys are seeing. With the 15-minute developer walkthrough that has a lot of pop-in. You do not want pop-in, guys. It really breaks the immersion. It can really screw you up. Grand Theft Auto 5 did a fantastic job at minimizing pop-in. There were a few issues where things just popped out of nowhere, but that was very rare. All right, and Watch Dogs, that extra 6-month delay, I'm sure that you can definitely see from the new gameplay that there's barely any pop-in anymore. Like they fixed it, you know. And again, this game's running 1080p on the PlayStation 4. You know, the game's gonna look good. It is, but everyone seems to be wondering that there seems to be this misconception around next gen. What is next gen? And that's the thing. What is really next gen? Because you got the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are built on x86 architecture to be equivalent to PCs, but the hardware in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One is already irrelevant, and you can already, for the price of a PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, you can already buy a graphics card that will outperform it in pretty much any upcoming game for the next 2-3 years. You know, you bought a PC. You bought a PC, I bought a PC, we bought mini PCs. That's what we bought. We got little mini PCs for our living room. They're essentially the Steam machine. That's essentially what they are. They're built on x86 architecture. They're non-upgradable, and the problem with this is that, yes, the whole theme this generation was we want to make it easier for developers to program. Developers don't have to program through these little trinkles and stuff like. It's very easy for developers to come in here and just program a game to have it ported over to these consoles. But every single choice has a consequence, and the consequence with x86 architecture is that developers know how to use this, and they're already going to max out the systems. The Order 1886 developers, Ready at Dawn, they already said we pretty much maxed out the PlayStation 4. And then the Order 1886 is a launch year game for PS4. Forza 5 developers, that was a launch game for Xbox One. They said we used all the power of the Xbox One with our engine. They like to use it with our engine, meaning that in the future they're going to have to go in there and reprogram their engine so it can be you can use different resources and it can be more efficient, and then they can get the game to work slightly better. You know, but I mean, we're already seeing developers running to these issues, these performance hiccups, and it's evident with the resolution and frame rate. You know, I'm playing Titanfall. Titanfall's 792p with 60 frames per second mostly. It kind of dips in between, but you know, it's like these developers should be able to put out. I mean, this is a game that came out like a game that came out for a system that's 5 months old, 4 months old, whatever. Developers should be able to put Titanfall on there, be 1080p, 60 frames per second, no problem. You know, I mean, we're so used to, all of us are so used to having consoles where it takes developers years to finally max them out. The PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 had a tremendous life cycle. It was a long life cycle, but developers utilized the hell out of it, and you have to be pretty damn impressed that games like The Last of Us looked as good as they did. Games like Grand Theft Auto worked as smoothly as it did. You know, Far Cry 3 looked pretty decent and ran decent too on those consoles. Yeah. But regardless, let's get off Watch Dogs for a sec. I'm going to show you guys, because everyone doesn't seem to be bringing this up. let me remind you of what happened with Far Cry 3. All right, I'm going to show you guys right now what Far Cry 3 looked like at E3 2011 when it was revealed. And I played the game, max settings on PC in 1080p, and I, honest to God, can tell you right here that the game did not look this good. Alright, so here is Far Cry 3 gameplay from E3 2011. Look at the grass. Look at the shadows. It's incredible. Like, the level of fidelity, the shadows didn't look that great. The shadows were nice in Far Cry 3, but they were not even that amazing. Like that level of detail and how sharp the shadows were. They never looked that good max settings on the PC. The tell textures, the water. The water looked pretty good, but it did not look that good. We're so used to seeing, I think last generation was an exception because people saw Far Cry 3 at E3. They said, "Oh wow, this game looks good," but it was, I think it was the last consoles, and there was lower expectations back then. Here's another snippet of gameplay. This is running on the PlayStation 3 supposedly. The game does not look this good on PlayStation 3. Look at that mountain. Do you think there's that many trees and there would be popping up the ass on the PlayStation 3 version? You'd be looking over there, and the ground would be colored green, and there wouldn't be grass over there. There was many less trees than what you guys were seeing right now. The PlayStation 3 version did not look that good. It looked good, but not nearly as good. That's amazing. If they were able to get that game to look this good on PS3, that would have been exceptional. It's common knowledge that whenever a game debuts at E3, developers want that game to look gorgeous, and they can sell you on technology. When we saw Watch Dogs, were we more excited for the gameplay of Watch Dogs or the way it looked? Because I can tell you right now, I was more excited for the technology behind Watch Dogs than it was for how it actually looked. It looked amazing and fun to play. We haven't really seen a game with an open world aspect and your ability to interact with with every single piece of technology within the environment. That hasn't really, been done before. But here we are, we're looking at that, what's really appealing to us is because it's pretty. We like pretty things. Humans like pretty things. When I look at the brand new Sony Xperia Z2, I'm like in love. I love the way that device looks. It's sexy. I want it, I want it, I want it. When we see new consoles, it's like we want it, we want it, we want it. We love pretty things. We're attracted to pretty things. It's just in our nature. But guys, Watch Dogs isn't gonna look that good. It's not gonna. You and I both wish it would look that good, but you and I also don't have the money to afford a GTX 680 SLI setup. And if you do, you probably wouldn't, spend that amount of money on your gaming rig. Wow. So this is all. I just want to remind everyone that this just happens, and I think the game looks good. I think it does look good. But again, what is next gen? Is next gen purely graphics? Look around the city. Look in this gameplay right now. Look at everything that is going on. Please, just take a moment and don't look at the graphics. Don't look at how sharp the textures are, but look at everything that's going on. Look at the civilians interact and talk to each other. Look at the animations of the civilians and how real they behave. Look at the cars driving by. That is next gen, people. That is the next generation of gaming. Further immersion in the world. More stuff happening that further blurs the line between reality and fantasy. Next gen is not purely about visuals, but it's more about making immersive experience, making more immersive experiences. And I'm looking at Watch Dogs now, and I took a moment. I said, let's just not think about the graphics here. I just want to watch the gameplay. And I looked at everything that was going on, and I was fucking impressed. I was damn well impressed. And I can't wait for the game. I can't wait for the game. My hype didn't drop for it because it's not as pretty as E3 2012. The developers have said, they were asked the question, how good is Watch Dogs going to look? You know, they came out and said, they're like, no, the graphics haven't been damaged. They haven't been, you know, downgraded at all, which is probably, you know, it's obviously bullshit, you know, because you can see there's definitely a different level of fidelity between E3 2012 and the current gameplay that you're watching right now. But someone also asked a question if it was going to look like E3 2013, and the person said, yeah, it's going to look pretty. He said it's going to look exactly like E3 2013, and I'm fine with that because the game looked great at E3 2013. You know, honestly, all this yapping about the graphics, it doesn't look good. It sucks. It just looks like crap. It doesn't look next gen. You know, it's next gen is not purely around textures. If you care about graphics, why don't you go buy an SLI GTX 680 setup for your gaming PC and become a PC gamer? Because then you'll be happy. You'll be able to play everything in 60 frames per second or more, provided you have the monitor to display that. You'll be able to play Watch Dogs at 1080p, 60 frames per second or higher resolution. Actually, Watch Dogs is going to be the first PC game, I believe, to support a 4K resolution. That's freaking beautiful. Who has a 4K TV, right? Anyway, I just wanted to talk about this and give my 2 cents on the whole thing. I think the game looks good. I think when you look at everything, not the graphics, but all the processes that are going on around you, I think that you'll be damn impressed. Some people can't take their minds off the sharpness of the textures. Oh, look, there's no tessellation on his face. It's been cut down. I can't see his whiskers from his beard, and I just can't. It looks horrible. No. It looks good. It looks good. It looks fun, and it looks really impressive. All the processes, all the way the civilians react, you know, though how the world appears so, you know, lively, I guess is a term I can use. You know, there's a lot of civilians out there. It doesn't look like something like Batman, where there's like no civilians outside and you can't really interact with anything. It just looks like a dead city. There's so much life going on around you. People taking pictures. The fact that every civilian you're seeing, every civilian you're seeing has a unique identity, has a unique job, has unique properties. Imagine the craftsmanship, how long it took to sit there and give everyone a unique name, unique sense of history, unique missions and stuff like that. I mean, just the fact that you can walk around, look at someone's text messages. This is all happening in real time. That's next gen, people. And I think we need to get off this whole graphics bandwagon of next gen is purely about graphics, and if it's all about how pretty the game can look. No. When I look at Watch Dogs, I've never seen a game like that where you know, I'm looking at it and there's just so much happening around me. Even Grand Theft Auto, which did a really great job. Grand Theft Auto 5 did not have civilians that did that much stuff, that did not have all that stuff going around you. It looked pretty, but you know, when you see civilians in Grand Theft Auto 5, they're walking. They're walking. And they're doing other stuff. When have you ever seen a civilian like inside a store who's actually like picking up clothes and putting them on and asking the clerk questions? That's next gen. It's further breaking the line between reality and fantasy. And developers are going to they're going to bring the type of experiences they're going to want to bring. And believe me, they're developing the game. This is their game, people. They don't want the game to look crappy. They're going to make sure that they make the game look good. You know, it's like, would you want your game to purposely look shitty on one platform? No, you wouldn't. Not if you hate the Wii U and you were developing a game for the Wii U, you would make sure that that game looked as good as it did, good as it could, and ran as well as it could on the Wii U. It doesn't matter that you hate the Wii U. It's your game. You're giving people an experience that you yourself crafted from your mind. You know, from your imagination. Developers want their game to look pretty, and they're going to make sure Watch Dogs looks pretty. But again, what we're seeing could be, this could be like months old, the build. This could be like an early build of the game. This is just what they had playable at the moment. It's just this build of the game, you know? This does not mean that at this particular point in time, it looks this good. No. No one said that. They only show us as much as they're going to show us, and I'm not there every day. I'm not there every day. Are you there every day looking at the game? I don't think so. If you are, you're probably a developer, and you're probably not watching this video, but, you know, that's beside the point. So that's all I wanted to talk about. All right, I just look at everything else that's going on around you, and I promise you will be impressed. It's hard not to be impressed when you see civilians do all that stuff and the game look as good as it does. I think the game looks good. I can't wait for it to come out. I'm getting it on the PlayStation 4. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be fun to play, and it's one of my most anticipated games. Doesn't matter if the graphics look the way they do when the game ships. If it looks how it does now, that's fine. I like that. That's cool. You know, because one thing that's definitely not changed is the way the civilians react in the city and all the stuff that's just going on around you. I can't emphasize that enough. But seriously, it's freaking impressive. It's going to be fun to play, and I can't wait to play it. So that's all I have to say about that, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give me your thoughts. I'd actually be interested to have some sort of debate with someone on you know, what truly is next gen to you? What really is next gen to you outside of visuals? Because why would you just want a prettier Call of Duty? Why would you just want a prettier Grand Theft Auto? You know, we want pretty things, yes, but in reality, when you really take when you really take a back seat and just think about it, when you just think about it, what you really want is something that further brings you immersion in the experience that you're playing. And Watch Dogs is definitely going to bring you immersion. Talk to you guys later. Have a great day.